Hello, welcome back to Computer Literacy 101. Today we're going to talk about hardware components. We're going to talk about computer components and the individual parts that make a computer work. For example, stuff like this right here, and these things that are laying around, and also this. We're going to talk more about them. So let's go over what we're going to cover today. Today we're going to talk about the CPU, which is a central processing unit, RAM, which stands for random access memory, hard disk drive, the motherboard, which contains everything that you see here. Technically, this is not contained on the motherboard, but it powers up the motherboard. The power supply unit and the graphics power processing unit. Almost said power. We're going to start with the CPU. This is a central processing unit. This is the heart of the computer. It runs all the computation processes, and it's built from millions of transistors. This is a very complex architecture. Some chips can be worth $20. Mid-range chips can be $300, and high-end server-grade chips can be worth up to 20 grand. It's almost as much as a car. The CPU is the brain. It processes input operations and outputs. So all the keyboard, touch input, and pretty much any kind of input that you give goes in, the CPU processes it, and it puts out an output. And we're going to figure out where this output goes. So after the CPU processes this information, it goes here to the random access memory. This holds volatile memory. That means once the computer turns off, it's gone. It's closer to the CPU for faster delivery. So the CPU is right here, and this is a heatsink and a fan to keep the CPU cold because it gets pretty hot. It's running all those processes, making all those computation processes, and it gets quite fast. And the RAM's right here. These are RAM slots called DIM slots. This is where you put your slots, and this is a dual channel, but it's a little bit more complicated. This is for more advanced courses, so don't worry about that. This is what we're focused on. This is where all the input operations are going. So input on the CPU and output goes to this RAM, and it's stored temporarily here so it could go somewhere else. After the RAM has that information, it's going to send it somewhere more permanent. This is a hard disk drive. It holds storage, and it holds it in different mediums. It varies in speed and capacity. So we're going to talk about the different mediums. There's some old school mediums, which are tape drives, which are very legacy, not really going to be covered on this course, but it's for a more advanced course. This is an SSD, which is a solid state drive, and this is a mechanical drive. The mechanical drive is more traditional and probably the more cost effective. Usually most enterprises are running these drives, but they're running the SAS version, which is also a more advanced topic. The solid state drive is probably what you're going to get in a consumer device. It's really fast, and it can provide an extended lifetime to older components or older computers. There's pros and cons to using each of these different mediums, but those are for more advanced topics, and you can also do your own research if you want. Moving on to the next topic. And finally, the motherboard. This is what keeps all these components together. It holds critical system components, tracks the time of the system, which is right here, synchronizes the frequencies. So you have all these computer components working together, and they need to have these frequencies of electrons synced up. So you have a frequency here on your RAM. Your CPU also holds a frequency. So you want to make sure those are checked and are in sync. We're going to move on to our next slide. The power supply unit provides power to the motherboard. It's very simple. It's called PDU in some cases, although it's not common. Another thing that it powers up is graphics cards. So if you have a gamer in your family, you're going to want to know that. Let's moving on to the next slide. This is more of a bonus because it's not really something that you need to know, but we're going to talk about graphics processing units. This is a dedicated graphics processing unit right here. So it would be called a discrete GPU, graphics card. So this is what gaming computers would have. Your laptop probably has an integrated graphics unit, so it is actually part of the CPU. So my horrible CPU is drawn out right here, and this part right here may be dedicated to graphics processing. A lot of modern chips do this, so they would have separated GPU from the CPU. And if you want to learn more about this, you could always search the wikis. You could dig around or ask me, and I'll be willing to provide you with that information. Or you could build your own computer because it's very fun and very rewarding. Okay, so now we're going to review everything that we learned today. The CPU, which is a central processing unit, and if you could just point it out where it should be. I'm just going to point it out right here. And we're going to talk about the RAM and what it does. The RAM, of course, stores the information temporarily from the CPU, which would be right here. And you guessed it, the hard disk drive. This is a little bit more complicated because we never really talked about where they're connected. They connect the SATA drives on most modern motherboards, and they're actually right here, as you can tell, pointing away from the motherboard because they're critical components, but they're not treated as part of the circuitry right here. They're just storage media. So that'd be right here. And of course, the very obvious motherboard, which holds all these critical system components. The power supply, which I didn't mention how it's connected to the motherboard, but it's connected on the ATX power supply module. And it's actually this thing right here. So this is where the power supply would be connected. And I never talked about where this graphics processing unit would be plugged in. Generally, like I said before, it would be part of the CPU. But this particular chipset does not support integrated graphics processing units. So it would actually have discrete graphics processing units. And these are PCIe Express cards. As you can see, they have special levers so you can attach and remove these graphics cards. And this one supports up to 2. Some high-end gaming computers will support up to 4. And of course, don't forget this little part right here, which is a battery that holds the time. Alright, you guys, that concludes this chapter. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope that I piqued your interest in computers, and hopefully you guys want to build a computer, or if not, want to open your computer and fiddle around. Alright, you guys, have a good day and enjoy your day. If you enjoyed this video, please visit us at villit.net. We offer other courses and will be updating these courses as time goes by. We also offer training services for your staff so they can be ready to tackle any IT problem that you may have.